Welcome to the Yankee Cowboy Podcast, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Here's your host, Tim Wilkins.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Yankee Cowboy Podcast. Joined by the co-host, Chris, joining me once again. And today's topic is something that I think both of us can arguably agree is a challenge in today's America, and that is being a man in America. That's right. I'm talking about a man. Shut up, a man's talking. That's right. We all go through struggles in life, divorce, kids, not having kids, trying to make kids, trying to find the right wife, try to find the right girlfriend, work, all that fun stuff. Collectively and arguably is becoming more of a challenge day in and day out in America to be a man. So today's topic is an open discussion of the challenges that we face and how the hell we can conquer all of them. Chris, I appreciate you joining me, buddy.
Yeah.
It's been a rough month, my friend. I think we can say that. I hope everyone had a good summer, but it's been a tough month or two.
Yeah.
Summertime, man.
Summertime's wrapping up, and kids are going back to school, and where we commandeer is hotter than hell. So it's
Dude, I think that's a part of being a man too.
That's part of being a man too. But I think we'd all be remiss to say that we're ready for fall to get here.
Absolutely. I know in Texas, my electric bill right now is for a single man in a double ride and 2-bedroom apartment. I'm using more electricity than a 2-person room. So it's we're burning up that AC unit. I tell you, that AC unit is getting beat up like a redheaded stepchild. I tell you, and I'll be remiss, though. I think in today's topic, it's a difficult one for a lot of reasons. One, society as a whole, that's a unique conversation. And the expectations put upon us as being men in today's society. And that's where I think is probably the easiest way to start, because I'm a single man. But yet, in the last 5 years, I've noticed a very unique trend, Chris, that women do not like men to be the protector. They want us to be the men that carries the bag of cash.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate because, as much as we like having cash, we don't necessarily want to spend it on you all the damn time. So there's that. But there's other things too, like kids and all the fun stuff. But
yeah, as a once married man with two young kids now, it is indeed interesting. This was a topic we were kind of thinking of. All right, what's something that's kind of off the run of the mill stuff that we've talked about between sports and racing and politics and just kind of something different. But one of the things I listen to pretty continually on a regular basis is a lot of the the high, quote unquote, high value men content. Some people refer to it in quotation marks as red pill content. But it is fascinating to listen to different sides and facets. Now, and I'm sure people who are listening probably know some of the names who are in that particular space itself. But when you think about really the dynamic of, not only the family dynamics, how they've changed over the last, let's even say 50 or 60 years, where the idea of a man was, the man went to work and provided for the family. The wife stayed at home. The kids stayed at home as well. You talk about the kind of post World War II baby boomer era of, the white picket fence, the one car in the driveway. The man works and brings home the bacon, and the wife, the wife stays at home. How much has that shifted? Just in our culture, not just because of obviously, the cost of living, which, we can get in a whole discussion about, how the government has really incentivized, taking the mothers out of the home and making them work in a sense to provide for the family itself. But that's, maybe a topic for another podcast.
Yeah,
but
man.
interesting.
To me, it's unique because I grew up a little bit differently than most people. I grew up with a split household, once the age of 8. So the dynamic is different. And of course, it kind of, as a single guy now, it's a turnoff to me as a man to date a woman that has more than 2 kids. Huge turnoff to me. And I'm not saying it's against the law to have children. It's just, it complicates the hell out of everything. And not in a negative way, just both ways, man, negative and positive. It complicates everything we do. And it's difficult in that part of it. But I grew up with a split household, and I can tell you things ain't easy. But I knew for a fact that my father was at work 90% of the time, 95% of the time, and was there for my little league games and my other things. But when it comes to like being home during the day, like let's say I get home from school, my dad wouldn't be home from school right away. He would be home later in the evening, probably around dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
But, weekends, my dad would go to work overtime. And I was there with him. But my mom, she would work part-time when I was a kid. And then obviously after my parents got divorced, she worked full-time in like retail jobs and stuff like that. But dynamics have drastically changed where in the modern society that there's some expectation that people are allowed to sit at home and not do anything all the time and just raise kids. And that's the old school mentality. And believe me when I say that, I would love for both parents to work in modern society because, in my view, it teaches the kids a little bit about responsibility, because it talks about time management and how to make best use of your time. But very unique situation because, my father, he's due to retire next year. My mom hasn't worked since 2006, I think. So a lot of different situations with both parents, but it's unique because there's that expectation of going to work every day and doing our thing and bringing home money. But see, they want stability and they want your time. And in reality, they can't get both. I watch a lot of content around thank God for stupid, 30-second or 15-second reels, because I can get all the content I want in a quick period of time. But you see it all the time. Guys work their life away and they do well monetarily, but they're just shells of themselves. So they kind of not have much of a home life. And you see that all the time. And it can't do both. You really can't. It's difficult. But
yeah,
I would say that too, though, man. Like, there's a difference. There's a fine line between like bringing in, providing for your family, and being, I would say, there for the family as well. I mean, being physically there, being emotionally there is a different story,
Yeah, but I think one of the things that I think part of a discussion is the idea of when you mentioned being emotionally there. I hear a lot of that, quote unquote, being emotionally there. I feel like what we've seen in our society, as our society has become more, I mean, I'll just be honest and say, as our society has become more emasculated, is there's this whole idea of feelings, like how do you feel about something, whether it's whether it's any particular thing, it's more about feelings than it is, we just need to get things done. One of the fascinating things I seen, and looking at it from the perspective of, the dynamic of the way families are now, where right now in 2023, the rate of divorce is almost, it's basically almost, it's a coin flip. It's 50-50 at this point. And, roughly 80% of divorces are initiated by women. So we're seeing this kind of onslaught, whether you want to say it's third wave feminism, or the fact that women in some cases are out earning men. The number of women going to college now is has eclipsed men. We're seeing this kind of, I don't want to say power shift. We're seeing this dynamic shift now. In the kind of American way of living and thinking that, was not the case, whether it be 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So I think it's fascinating, that what we're seeing, but not to continue talking, but I think one of the things that's interesting, and one of the content creators I like to watch, she actually does these interviews where, and again, it's a lot of these are girls in their, say early to mid 20s into their early 30s. And I think a lot of it's obviously because of our society. We could talk about our society itself, where social media and the idea, reality TV have given such a warped reality to both men and women. Is that the idea of of how much people actually make? The idea that someone may think that making $200,000 a year is a kick in the bucket, when the average 30-year-old male in America makes roughly, I think, between $45,000 and $50,000 a year. But when you see one side of it and don't know the actual reality, that's, unfortunately, that sets our society up for issues.
To me, man, it's unique because society will teach you that, but at the same time, I'm not talking about emotionally being there in the sense of it being negative or positive. It's one of those things where you just got to know when to read the room, I guess, because I'm not talking about crying. I ain't talking about being emotional, but when the difficult conversations come about in life, you got to be able to convey thought, and because the other person on the other side of that relationship might be better at it than you, but you got to be able to communicate effectively in a sense where everyone kind of understands where each party lies on the scenario. And it's not something, I always find that it's somewhere somebody lacks that possibility. And I'm not here to kick or down women, but the emotional part of a relationship to me isn't a part about being emotional. It's about empathy, I guess you can say, and understanding where people lie. Because I'm not going to get emotional. I'm a very matter of, like, I've learned through watching my parents divorce that how you navigate through a relationship isn't through emotion. Sometimes it's through logic and communication. And I've seen that with my dad. My dad got remarried when I was 11. He's been happily married for 22 years now. And I can tell you how they navigated through that relationship. That, listen, they're not always going to agree on everything. I think that's universally understood. But it's how you navigate and communicate and stay in a situation that is positive. But the 20 to 30-year-old, I would say the generation behind us, Chris, is what really scares me about this topic, because they have this warped view of what their perceptions are about the expectations of the other party in a relationship. And I'm sorry, but anytime I ever see you, I hear it all the time. I work with people that are majority 10 years younger than me, and I can tell you there's some really wow. That's unique. I just, they either got dropped on their head when they were kids, they ate lead chips, they have an emotional pedigree. Like, I don't get the whole, like, let's talk about every single thing like it's a problem. It's not. It's not a problem. It's just the day-to-day life that we go through. People have issues, ladies and gentlemen. I
Yeah.
think universally, I can say that. You can say that. People got issues.
Yep.
People got stressors. People have those. The problem is 99.9% of them don't know how to go navigate through those issues. So they
Exactly.
become crazy fucking people.
Or,
Like,
or they're not even issues.
they're not
You know,
even issues, right? Like,
we live,
I'm
we live,
sorry, but the woke shit just drives me
yeah,
insane. Like, you want to get yourself all flustered and get yourself all hot and bothered about something that doesn't even directly affect you, aka the word triggered. I'm sorry, that's not triggering. That's just, haha,
yeah.
you're a moron to get flustered over somebody else's problem. Like, I just don't see how that is the best use of your time. And I'm not a person that, how do I put it, in the context that matters. I'm not one of those that sits there and I dabbles into that crap all the time. I think everybody has their own like things going on, Chris. I think, a day-to-day life. I don't live myself in a warped tunnel of stupidity all the time. I can't.
We,
You can't do that.
we live, and again, this is a part of a larger discussion, but
Yeah.
we live in a country. We live in a country, and this is where I think we all fall on this path. We're I think it'd be a great episode to talk about why we're proud to be Americans. I think it'd be a great episode. But the idea that we, living in the greatest country in the world, regardless of what people think, being fortunate enough to grow up here in this country where you can basically do anything you want, be anything you want, and buy anything you want. I mean, when it comes to how fortunate we are in society, we take for granted the things. That many things around the world that we have here in the United States of America. And I think that gives us this tunnel vision, the idea that like we have to create issues or problems. And I think a lot of it dates back to, and again, topic for another discussion is our education system is the failure of our education system and our institutions from higher learning all the way down to, elementary and even preschool, and how they failed our, generations of children have really, essentially, people talk about, dumb millennials and dumb Gen. I mean, there's dumb people in every generation, but they really, they rip on millennials, they rip on Gen X, because of, and it's obviously failures of our education system. And I think that all also transpires into this conversation as well, of where things are, for the dynamic of men and women for sure.
I just, arguably, man, I just find it difficult in a lot of ways to kind of get the point across to people that, I don't deal with the emotional shit of an issue. I deal with the logic and the facts of an issue.
Yep.
That's just the way life is. The emotional side of us is our significant others.
Oh man, but dude, you're forgetting one of the great lines in our society from the great Ben Shapiro. Even though I don't always agree with him, the great Ben Shapiro. What's his famous line?
Oh, I usually don't. I don't remember because he talks too damn fast.
Facts don't care. Facts don't care about your feelings.
That's true. They don't. They never do. And that's the thing, man. Like I can't stress that enough to everyday society that your feelings do not matter. Okay, listen. Like same thing with relationships. People say they love each other. No, they don't. They lust after each other. Let's get it correct.
Yep.
The love part is called security and logic and common sense.
Yep.
Let's get through that through everyone's mind and skull here. I might be controversial when I say that I can care no bounds here on this one.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of people get divorced, including my parents.
Yep.
So divorce rate's extremely high. I've seen people get divorced over the stupidest of reasons, and some of the most logical of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes.
The idea too now that people, because of the divorce rate's so high, the idea that, and listen, I believe in marriage from a biblical sense. I mean, I think it's obviously it's a bit, while it's looked at in terms of the state, the country as a a transactional sense, from a I look at it from a biblical standpoint. The fact of the matter is, you know, the idea that people these days are willing to, it's all, and we live in a culture. I mean, we look at like the dating apps and things like that, where you just can just swipe all day, and swipe
Hey,
right.
it's a good time, my friends.
Yeah.
Keep
But,
if you want some strange for a little bit of change, that's the way it goes.
yeah,
That's how it goes.
But what I'm getting at is the idea that, people, at least today, are less likely to grow together as a couple. Like you hear couples, like whether it be folks in their 80s and their 90s who've been married for 50 plus years, and they say, "Oh, we didn't have enough money. We'd have to go to McDonald's and split a hamburger because we didn't have enough money." And through perseverance, through hard work, through saving, through everything, and building a family, those people stay together for 50 plus years, till death do they part. We don't see that today. The idea that, it's always on to the next thing. This person doesn't make enough money. Now it's time to move on to the next person. It's quite sad.
And it's sad because the expectations get put on us as guys to we get called every dirty name in the book.
Yeah.
Because of the way we act.
Yeah.
I've gotten said to me that you think a relationship is transactional. I said, yeah, until you prove me otherwise, it is. And I hate to sound like a selfish, arrogant asshole, but yeah, it is until you show me otherwise, because the other aspects of a relationship change over time, and the dynamic changes over time. It doesn't just, as my parents remind me that their relationship, was not the same 7 years after they got married.
Yeah.
And things do happen along the way. So
the honeymoon phase only lasts so long, and people need to realize that. Like, it's not going to be rainbows and
it's never.
That, the idea, that's why honestly I look at people and I say to them, man, is it really worth spending $30,000-$40,000 on a wedding for one day in your life?
Yeah, I'd rather spend that on other things, but that's just me personally.
But when you look at it from the perspective of, looking from a man's perspective, I mean, look at the way our society is built when it comes to, the idea of, parental rights. I mean, typically most states here in the United States, if there is a separation if there's a separation, normally it typically always goes to the mother, regardless of, in a lot of cases, the man has to fight for his parental rights, and whether that's in red states, blue states, purple states, and it's the case, that men a lot of times have to fight for, custody or time to even see their children. The whole deal of alimony and child support, and you hear some of these cases, especially in, with celebrities, where, the child support payments are, in the tens of thousands of dollars per month. And it's like, is this supposed to be supplemental for the child, or is this supposed to be, is all this money going as a credence to the ex, wife, baby mama, whatever term you want to use? And that's, I think, where society as a whole, and we talk about the dynamic of how men are these days. And I think that that's something that definitely hurts them. Tim, you there?
Yeah, you guys got me?
Yep, okay. I got you.
Yeah, I just pushed mine. All right, that's always a good time. It's unique, man, because I think in modern things, like, okay, we'll just take the last three celebrity scenarios there. Okay. Zion Williamson. Sorry, buddy. Graduated from the great University of Duke there. And so, like, that's kind of how that plays out to me.
Yeah.
You got him. You got Dennis. Was it Kevin Costner?
Yep.
phone with the alimony payment. It's like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
how much money a month? Like, sorry, but how much? And Kevin Costner fought that in court. Like, that's insane. But back to the square root of the issue is what do we do to fix it, right? And the scary thing about it is there's not much you can do to fix it.
No.
And it's scary to say that, but the only thing we do as men is we just keep trucking on. Like, it's another day at the office.
Yeah.
And that's how we go about life. And that's the way it goes. There is no reward. There is no sympathy. There is no get out of jail free card. No. What we get every day is satisfaction, trying to do the right thing.
What I've found, in or I've read and have seen, even personally, is that a lot of women these days want a quote unquote, want to be quote unquote a boss babe or a whatever, being a strong independent woman, but they want a man who has more of that traditional, even just saying conservative, conservative type values, where women I think are again, I'm not a woman. What is a woman? Get it?
What is the definition of the meaning of the word is right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they traditionally want a traditional man, but they don't want everything that goes with a traditional man. So it's kind of an oxymoron of what people want, women want in particular.
I'll say this, man. It's one of those weird things, and I'll say this as a dynamic in a relationship. It is baffling to me. Yeah, listen, whatever, to each their own, right? Everybody has different things, but if you want an independent woman and you want the dynamic of the old school traditional values, sorry, that doesn't work in modern society because something has to give. Something has to give. Time away from home equals time away from family. If you want a good, strong family dynamic, someone's got to be home a little bit. And it's difficult to say that, but when both parents aren't home or they both work, it makes it a challenge. It can be done. I'm not saying you can't raise a kid with two working parents.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a challenge and you have to communicate. And you got to be damn good at the communication front. If you're not going to lapse in that wall, it makes things a challenge. And that's just me speaking from a person of observation. But at the same time, and this is the conversation we're having as an open discussion, is a man's expectation in modern society is a lot higher than a woman's point of view and perspective and expectations. That's why it's very difficult for me to sit through a conversation about women should be making the same as men. And I'm not trying to sound like a sexist, but it's just a matter of facts here. If you can pass the same standards on a civil service exam as a man, then yeah, I have no problem you making the same amount of money as me. Period. Military, same thing. Understandable. That's why there is a set of standards for men and there is women. And that's why we go back to this conversation about allowing biological men in women's sports. And I'm not going to go down that topic of conversation in this podcast episode because that's a whole jar of good time right there. But a man should not be a biological man, okay? Which, by the way, that if you want a definition for what is a man, you got the appendage. Okay, that's the way it goes. That's the way it's going to play out. You got the appendage, you are a biological man, bar none. Don't care what you think. That is what it is. I identify as a millionaire. Doesn't necessarily mean I am one. That's just how that's going to play out, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't mean that to joke around.
It's baffling how some of this stuff guys go out of proportion. Like the old school mentality we talked about in the podcast. that still exists in modern and in society. It's just been overwhelmed by the fact of all this other stuff. And it's just one of those things, man. Like, I don't see, until they come at us, and I mean that with them, meaning people of all shapes, sizes, creeds, and identify as whatever the fuck. You know, they come at the man and say, "Hey, listen, this is what we're gonna do for us." Men are be like, "We gotta go to work. We don't got no time for talking." That's what men are gonna do. We got things to do. We got kids to feed. We don't got no time to talk about this bullshit stuff because sorry, but none of that stuff affects us on a day-to-day life. None of it. What pronoun I use,
Yeah.
what, doesn't affect me. Doesn't affect me. My personal life. What my name is Tim. I identify as my name last time I checked in all governmental documents. Okay. That's how it plays out. Identity needs to be squared away. And just baffling. Society is completely different. But and really, as a man in modern society, we are the provider. We are the guy. We are the men that carry the torch. And unfortunately, it's not filled with emotion. It's filled with lots of common sense. That's the way it's going to play out. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a good place to wrap. To kind of end this one. Might be taking a part 2 later on. But Chris, thank you for joining me.
Yes, sir. Good conversation to have. Hopefully we'll get some feedback from our fans out there.
Of course, I appreciate it, man. Have a good rest of your week, and hopefully all things will go according to plan. So, everybody have a good rest of your week. Have a good weekend, kids. Be smart. Don't be stupid. Don't let anyone steal your lunch money. If they even do that anymore, with lunch money, maybe it'll be like a lunch credit card now. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah.
So, other than that, man, have a good rest of your weekend. Try to. I'll talk to you after a while, buddy. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Yankee Cowboy Podcast. Feel free to follow us on social media via Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.